Hey everyone, this is part 2 of my ZBLL series. In this video, I'll be going over what's called the Diag subset of ZBLLs. Essentially, this is the subset I covered last time, called 2GLL. And instead of having these sort of horizontal matching colors, this video I'll be going over these vertical matching color cases. And so yeah, if you have a case where you have this OLL and these are matching in this sort of pattern, then one of these algs will be applicable. Here's the first case. You can recognize it by where you sort of have this bar on the right-hand side of the cube, and these two are opposites. And so here, you start with the U2, and the alg goes like this. I guess breaking this down, you essentially just take out this pair, and you do an R prime D prime, and then you do RU2 R prime. And then you undo those moves. And here it is a bit faster. This next case is the mirror of the last one. Essentially, you also have a bar, but this time it's sort of on the left-hand side of the cube rather than on the right-hand side. And you have this opposite right here. And so the alg is from this angle, and essentially it goes like this. And so breaking that down, you just take out this pair, RG, wide R prime, U2, wide R, D prime, and then you insert into the back, sort of. And here it is a bit faster. Here is the next case. Once again, you have this sort of bar, and it's on the right-hand side. But instead of this sticker being opposite to this one, like in the first case that I showed in this video, they're adjacent. And so that's how you distinguish those two cases. So yeah, if they're adjacent, you'd start by doing a U, and this is the alg. And so breaking this down, essentially you do sort of this double sexy thing without the last move. And then instead of doing that last U prime, you cancel into this sort of commutator that sets up this pair to a nice 3-move insert. And so faster would look like this. This next case is the mirror of the previous one. Here you have this bar. It's on the left-hand side. And this sticker, instead of it being opposite to this one, like in the second case I showed, they're adjacent. And so here you do a U, and this is the alg. Breaking this down, it's just the mirror of the last one. You do this sort of back double sexy, cancel into a commutator, and then insert the last pair, like so. And so here it is a bit faster. Here's the next case. So instead of the bars being on this side, it's on this side. So in this case, the bar's on the left side. And if you look here, they're adjacent. So essentially, what you do here is you do a U2, and so it goes like this. And so breaking this alg down, essentially you start by taking this pair out. You can also think of it as sort of making this block. You can see how these 3 moves sort of make this block. Then you do a U2, commutator, and then solve this pair. And so here it is a bit faster. That was a bit locky. Let's try that one more time. There we go. This next case is the mirror of the last one. You have a bar on the right side, and these two are adjacent. And so here's the alg. Breaking it down, essentially you take this back pair out, and you could also think of it as creating this block. You're kind of joining this edge to this pair. And then next you just do a U2. You do a commutator to sort of bring this corner down here, and then you cancel into solving that pair. And so here it is a bit faster. This next case is among one of the easier cases to recognize. Here, you have this sort of 2x2 block, and it's important to note that in this case, the 2x2 block is sort of on the left side here, rather than on the right, because those are two different cases. And so if the 2x2 block is on this left side, you do U, and it goes something like this. And so, breaking this down, essentially, what you do, it's almost like the first alg I showed you, where it's this sort of thing, except it cancels into an antecedent at the end. And so, you do the first few moves of the alg, and instead of just inserting like this, you sort of cancel into an antecedent like that. So here's the alg just a little faster. This next case is the mirror of the last one. Once again, you do have a 2x2 block, but this time it's on the right side rather than on the left. And you start with the U2, and it goes something like this. And so, breaking this alg down, essentially most of the alg is just a J-prim, right? So these first few moves are a J-prim. And before inserting this last pair, like so, which is just a J-prim, you cancel into doing winter variation, and it goes something like this. Essentially, it's just a sledge canceling into this OLL, so it's more like this. And so the whole alg sped up would look more like this. One more time. Hopefully this one's not as locky. Like that. Okay. This next case is unfortunately pretty hard to recognize and also pretty hard to memorize. So, essentially, you don't have any bars around the whole layer at all. And you recognize it by seeing this sort of checkerboard pattern. You have this red, green pattern here. And so, once you have that, you hold it from this angle, and the alg goes something like this. So, unfortunately, I don't really know how to break that alg down. It looks like a bunch of random moves. So this is going to be one of the algs that you just have to memorize, and there's not really many techniques to memorize it, at least as far as I know. And so yeah, a bit faster, the alg looks like this. This case is the mirror of the last one. Essentially, once again, there are no bars around this layer, and you have a checkerboard pattern here. And this checkerboard pattern is on the right side rather than on the left. And so yeah, you can see there's this sort of blue-orange pattern going on. And it's on the right side, just remember that. And so the alg goes like this. You start with the U, and it goes like this. So once again, this alg is pretty hard to break down. I think if you know this GC prim alg, and then you take the inverse of that, which looks something like this. The ZBLL alg is just really similar to that inverted GC prim alg. So chances are you don't know that inverted GC prim alg, and so that probably wasn't helpful at all. But in the chance that you do, you can sort of see how they're really similar. I think only 2 of the moves are sort of swapped. But yeah, this is what it looks like a bit faster. Here's the next case. I honestly hate recognizing the case, but the alg is pretty fun to do. Essentially, you notice that there really is no pattern here. It's just a bunch of kind of random colors. But if you do a U2, you can see that there's this sort of full bar here. And so this is how I like to distinguish it, with this bar and no bars around here. And so essentially you hold that bar in the front, and the alg goes like this. And so, breaking it down, I'm not too sure how to break it down. Essentially, you just start with like an R2, U, R prime, U prime, or wide R2, U, R prime, U prime, and they sort of have this fat sledge, and then it kind of cancels into this OL. And so a bit faster, it would look like this. This last case is really bad in terms of recognition, memorization, and execution, at least in my opinion. Maybe not so much execution, but you know, I'll go over this in a second. Recognition-wise, this alg is really bad. You start out by seeing this sort of arbitrary combination of colors. There's nothing really to discern here, at least as far as I can tell. But I like to do just a U2, and I noticed that there are headlights here, and this color is opposite those headlights. And so, when I see that we have an arbitrary combination of colors, U2, and then we have headlights and an opposite color, that's how I recognize this case. So it's definitely not good for recognizing, which is why I feel like you should just do OLL, PLL. But if you want the alg, here it is. You have a regrip here. And then it gets a bit awkward there. Surprisingly, so the alg, I don't know how to break it down. Memorization-wise, I really don't know how to help you. It took me a while to memorize. But execution-wise, it's actually surprisingly decent. At least it's a bit better than I expected. I don't really know if it's considered good or not, but here it is. Yeah, I think you can see that the alg is actually not that slow. There's just this sort of awkward regrip, and then these last few moves are a bit weird, but it's an interesting alg, so learn it if you want. But I probably would just do OLL and PLL, so yeah. That wraps it up for my video on the subset of Diag T ZBLLs. Hopefully you found these algs rather useful, and hopefully you learned a bit, and yeah, thank you for watching.